How's it going, YouTube? RoboSushi here, bringing you guys another rulings video. But today, before we go into the discussion about what we're going to go over, I just want to give a huge shout outs to everybody who has subscribed to the channel. We just hit 500 subscribers a little bit before the recording of this video. Huge milestone for me. I started uploading on this channel just a few months ago, putting you guys out some gameplay and ruling videos, and to already be at 500 subscribers is just absolutely amazing. I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you guys. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe on the channel so we can get to that next big milestone, 1,000 subscribers. That'd be awesome if we can get there just as fast as we got to 100, and then, you know, onwards and upwards from there. I'd very much appreciate it. And like I said, if you're new, subscribe. If you enjoy the content, be sure to hit the like button on this video. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into some discussion about what we're going to go over in today's video. So guys, as the title may lead you to believe, this is just going to be some basic BT8 rulings. Nothing super crazy, nothing crazy interactions. BT8 did get delayed here in the States by another 3 weeks. I believe in other parts of the world it got delayed by just 1 week. So kudos to you guys who get the cards a little bit earlier than us. But anyway, I digress. We're just going to go over mainly new keywords. We have stuff like Armor Purge, we have dual colored cards, we have DNA Digivolve, stuff like that. I feel like it's good to go ahead and go over a few rulings. Originally, I wasn't going to worry about doing some of these rulings because I didn't have the cards physically in my hand, and I feel like some of the people may go over these, but it's good to know a few of these rulings. I will go over much more detailed and complicated rulings, maybe some few effect resolutions and stuff like that when the set officially comes out and I do get cards in my hand. So look forward to that when the set officially releases here in the States and I can get cards. But until then, we're just going to go over these basic rulings on Tabletop Simulator. I feel like it's a good way to go over these cards. You do get to see actual cards, but you get to see how the board looks and everything like that. So it looks a little bit more like I have physical cards when I don't. The best thing we got, especially for future formats, I'm not going to do this all the time, like I said, mainly just now because we have the delay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into our first ruling. Alright guys, so the first little bit of ruling stuff we're going to go over, remember these are very basic, so some of this may be self-explanatory. You may be able to skip through a few of these, maybe you're just interested in a few of the new keywords, but I thought this was a good thing to go over. If you see me look over here to this side of the screen, this is where my Tabletop Simulator is on this monitor over here, so you will see me look over here every now and then. But without further ado, what we have here are some of the new level 3s that we're going to see. These are all from the 02 Digimon, Armadillomon, Hawkmon, and Vmon. Small thing to note, these are the first set of rookies that we have that can Digivolve on top of different level 2 eggs, so you can mix up the variety of colors for decks. But the main thing that I wanted to go over here is what their effects are. We're going to go over Vmon because we have these two cards over here that are going to be important for this. Vmon, as well as the other ones, say reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. Add 1 2-color card with this color. In Vmon's case, it is blue, and then you add the rest. You add that card to your hand, and then you add the rest to the bottom of your deck. Hawkmon's red, and Armadillomon is yellow. The reason why this is important is, unlike previously, cards like this would usually say Digimon. You would have to add a Digimon that's blue or something like that. Whereas all these cards say is a 2-color card with blue from among them. So we have cards like Megadeth, which is a dual-colored yellow or green and blue card that I'm going to go over, and then we have Davis and Ken, which is also a dual-colored card. Both of these cards are dual-colored; they contain blue, so these are a target for Vmon. Now remember, he can't just grab a blue card. They can't just grab red or yellow. That has to be dual-colored, but as long as it contains that color, it works. So we have stuff like Megadeth, we have stuff like Ken and Davis that are dual-colored. They do contain blue. You are able to take them back to your hand. So really important thing going forward. These are searcher cards that give a little bit more variety to how the deck works, that are a little bit different than the previous searchers that we've seen. So everyone, I felt like while we were on the topic of Vmon, I'd go over some of the alternate evolution costs that they've introduced into BT8 that are a little bit different than some of our alternate evolutions that they've gone before, and I'll go over what I mean by that in a second. So what we have here is we have this Vmon in Raising, and we have this Flamedramon in hand. Now if you look at Flamedramon, you'll notice a couple of things. One, he has a Digivolution cost for 3 on top of a red Digimon, so it has to be a red level 3. Well, then how are we going to Digivolve on top of this Vmon? We have this alternate evolution cost. Kind of consider this gray box right here, this alternate evolution cost, as another box up here that required a little bit too much information to really work. So what this means is this is Digivolve from Vmon for a 2 cost. So This is a little bit different than, say, something like your Omnimon. It's similar and different at the same time to like Omnimon X Antibody from BT5, which said it could Digivolve on top of an Omnimon for a memory cost of 3. This is basically the same, only in the fact that it's an alternate Evo compared to what this says, but unlike with that Omnimon, this effect also applies to the raising area. So if you have your Vmon back here in raising and you Digivolve into Flamedramon, that is a legal play. Whereas you couldn't have like an Omnimon built up in your raising area before and then Digivolve into that Omnimon for a memory cost of 3. This gray box works this way to where you can Digivolve in raising with this. And this isn't like a reduction of Digivolution cost. This isn't like something like here we have Imperial Dramon where it says when one of your Digimon, one of your Pale Dramon or Dino Beamon would Digivolve into this card, you can reduce the memory cost by 3. This isn't like that. This is a full alternate. It's not a reduction of memory cost. And then also, here's another card that is going to be introduced, Digivolve from Dragon Mode for 2 cost. I'm pretty sure the actual card, when it's translated, will have a little bit more text on here and maybe say Imperial Dramon Dragon Mode. But again, this is different. You can just Digivolve on top of this for a memory cost of 2, and then it works that way. It can be in the battle area, it can be in the raising area. Important to know because there are quite a few Armor Digimon that you may not want to wait until the Vmon's on the field, and you want to have that little bit of security and Digivolve back in the raising area. So guys, while we brought up Flamedramon for the previous example about the Digivolution cost, I figured it's a good time to go over Armor Release or Armor Purge, whichever it's going to be translated to in English. I'm not sure at this point, so I'm sorry if it's one or the other. But on this card, it has Armor Release. When this Digimon would be deleted, you may trash the top card of this Digimon to Digivolve to keep it from being deleted. So what that means is, let's say you swing in to Security and the Flamedramon hits a target that has more DP than it, or you swing it, or your opponent swings over your suspended Flamedramon, or does some effect that would delete your Flamedramon. In that situation, instead of being deleted, you can go ahead and you can take the top card of the Digimon, aka the Flamedramon, throw it into the trash. The Vmon underneath will still stay, or whatever Digimon you've Digivolved it onto will stay and will not be deleted. Now, the few things to know about that, you don't get away with that if there is like a negative DP effect. So let's say there's a negative effect that would reduce Flamedramon's DP by 5,000. That DP would drop Flamedramon to 0. Game mechanics would try to delete the Flamedramon. Now in this situation, you can technically Armor Purge. You can use the interruptive effect to trash the top card of the Digimon, aka the Flamedramon, and then your Vmon would be left over. But that negative DP still applies to the Digimon itself, so it would apply to the Vmon. The Vmon would still have neg 5,000 DP, and the game would still delete Vmon. So that's something to know going forward. The other one to know going forward is Armor Purge also helps with something like the Machine Dramon from EX01, where with Piercing, if you use the effect of Armor Purge to keep the Digimon from being deleted by trashing the top card of it and leaving the other Digimon, the Digimon is not effectively deleted, so Piercing would not be able to activate, because since the Digimon wasn't deleted, you can't activate Piercing and you can't get the checks. Little do some people know is that it just doesn't pierce through any Digimon it attacks. The Digimon has to be deleted to actually get the piercing check. So a nice little thing that happens, you know, some benefits with Armor Purge, of course, but then the DP reduction is something that you can't really get away from unless the Digimon underneath has more DP that would keep it from being deleted than this one. Very few cases where that would actually happen, but I feel like it's important to go over, so I thought I'd go ahead and mention it. Alright everyone, so the next key point we're going to go over is going to be another new mechanic that was introduced into the BT8 format in the structure decks and both in the set. We're just going to go over some structure deck cards because they are probably going to be one of the more relevant ones that a lot of people are excited about. But we're going to have, in this situation, we're going to have Pale Dramon. So what Pale Dramon, whatever you want to call it, is DNA Digivolve a blue level 4 plus a green level 4 for 0 cost. Now what does this mean? This means you DNA Digivolve your blue Digimon, in this case we have an XVmon stacked like this, and your green Digimon, but you have to stack them on top of each other like so, where the blue Digimon goes on top of the green Digimon to then go into Pale Dramon. Now, if you were, say, going into the Dino Beamon, which says green over blue, then you would have to do the Stingmon on top of the XVmon. Pardon TTS for being a little wonky. So why might this matter? There are D-Digivolve effects, there are effects that strip sources, so it might really come up on what order these are placed into the onto the stack, and how those effects could affect how your attacks are going to resolve, or what effects might be able to resolve, so on and so forth. Now, a couple of other key points to know about D-Digivolve, or DNA Digivolve, is how they affect game mechanics. And what I mean by that is, let's say we have this XVmon, we swing in, we draw for this Upamon effect. Let's assume the Stingmon is on the field. Now we go to DNA Digivolve into the Stingmon, or into the Pyodramon on top of the Stingmon. So, like I said before, we have already used Upamon's once per turn effect. It has been used up for this XVmon. But when you DNA Digivolve into a Pyodramon, you notice that also the XVmon was suspended. It will unsuspend, it will become a new Digimon. Being a new Digimon, it is not affected by this Upamon. Doesn't think it's the same Upamon as the XVmon. It may be the same card, but it is a new Digimon. So now if you swing in with this Pyodramon and there's a Digimon with no sources, Upamon will in fact be able to trigger and activate again, drawing you another card. This is important because there are plenty of once per turn effects, and it does reset your once per turns, so you are able to get that. Another thing to note about DNA Digivolving is it makes, as I said with the Upamon, an entirely new card, an entirely new Digimon, I should say. So we have our Stingmon and we have this XVmon. Let's say we're at 7 memory, these are both in our hand, we play both of these down going to 0 memory. Then we go ahead, DNA Digivolve into our Pyodramon. Now, this Pyodramon, even though both the XVmon and the Stingmon were just played, they weren't able to attack. The game only considers that this Pyodramon as a newly evolved Digimon hasn't been played. He's just been newly evolved. So now this Pyodramon will in fact be able to swing again, even though both of its components were just played. So important things to note, there is a few different mechanics with the DNA Digivolve. I also want to mention, you'll see I have this Magnamon over here. Magnamon is both a yellow and blue Digimon. It will also fulfill the requirements to DNA Digivolve. You have a green card, even though it is yellow, it is also blue. So you can use that, stack these on top of each other to go into Pyodramon. There are plenty of dual colored cards in this format going forward, so I feel like it's important to kind of know a few of these different interactions and how some of them are going to be able to work to do certain combos and stuff like that. So I hope that, I know it's a little bit longer of an explanation from the previous ones, but DNA Digivolve is a whole new mechanic that introduces a whole bunch of new variety of plays and stuff that you can do in the deck. So I felt like I'd take a little bit of extra time, go over some of the other details with it. And then, like I said, when we get to the actual release of the set and I get some physical cards, if there's any, crazy effect combos and stuff like that, we can always go over those in those videos in the future. So while on the topic of DNA Digivolving, I did want to go over one special case that is going to come out in BT8, and that is, as you can see here, Chimeramon. So what makes Chimeramon a little bit different than other DNA Digivolve Digimon is he is a rainbow DNA Digivolve. Now what that means is it's any color stacked on top of any color. And it doesn't matter the order. So in this situation, you have, whereas Pyodramon has to be a blue on top of a green, this is any level 4 Digimon stacked on top of any level 4 Digimon. So you can do Stingmon on top of Flamemon, Flamemon on top of Stingmon. There is no specific order. You can even have 2 of the same color. So you could have 2 Stingmon, and then you could stack each Stingmon on top of one another to go into Chimeramon. It's kind of, self-explanatory, but at the same time, it is the only card that has this. And while I did mention that order was important for the Pyodramon and the Dino Beamon, Chimeramon doesn't really require the specific order to be any which way. And then also you can have the same colored Digimon stacked on top of one another. So I felt like it was important to just at least mention Chimeramon a little bit to go over how his mechanic worked. Now, another little bit of a new timing thing, I should say, not really a new mechanic, although I don't believe this mention was brought up in any other tamer to this point, but we have Davis and Ken. So what Davis and Ken says is at the start of your main phase, if you have a blue Digimon in play, you gain 1 memory. If you have a green Digimon in play, you gain 1 memory. Now, this, unlike the other memory tamers, like your regular Davis Motomiya, which says at the start of your turn, set your memory to 3 if you were at 2 or less. With Davis and Ken, this is at the start of your main phase. So you have your Davis or whatever go off, and now you've raised, or you've hatched, and then, or you've raised. Now this all happens in the breeding phase. The reason why this comes up is, let's say you have an empty board, don't mind these cards over here, and you have your Ken and Davis on the field. Now, in your raising phase, your breeding phase, you can either hatch an egg or raise a Digimon. So if you have an already hatched egg with a, say, a Vmon in this situation, then you raise it up. That is part of your breeding phase. Now you've entered your main phase. So before your main phase, you did not have a blue Digimon in play. Now that it's the start of your main phase, you've brought out the Vmon. Now you can, in fact, gain the memory from Davis and Ken for having a blue Digimon in play. A little bit of a timing thing that's very important to note, because there are a few other effects that come up that I'll kind of go over when the full set releases. Again, this is just some basic stuff, but the other thing to note is, like I said, if the Stingmon and Vmon are both on the field, then you get to gain the memory. And also, if you have a dual colored Digimon. So in this situation over here, we have, let's say we have our Paildramon on the field. Paildramon is both green and blue. Blue and green, I should actually say, because of his DNA Digivolve text. This does, in fact, successfully fulfill both conditions of Davis and Ken. You have a blue Digimon in play. You also, at the same time, have a green Digimon in play. The card does not specifically state they have to be separate Digimon. They can be the same exact Digimon. Since it is both colors, you do have both of them active, and you are able to gain 2 memory effectively from Davis and Ken. So everyone, the last point I really wanted to go over, again, I didn't want to go over too much, this is really just some basic stuff to go over looking forward for the next format, is dual colored options. So we have something like Megadeth right here, really strong effect to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and then return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to the owner's hand. This is basically like a souped up Cocytus Breath, because it is less memory than Cocytus Breath, so it's like, why would you ever play Cocytus Breath over this? Well, in this situation, Megadeth does require you to have both colors active on the field. Since it is blue and green, you have to have a blue source and a green source on field to activate Megadeth. So if you have a situation where, let's say, you just have this Stingmon on field and there's no other blue source, no Digimon, no Tamer, then you won't be able to actually activate Megadeth. Now, if you have something like this, where you have a Vmon and a Stingmon on field, you have made both color requirements, you are actually able to activate it. As mentioned with the Ken and Davis effect, if the only Digimon you have on field is something like a dual-colored Paildramon or Dino Beamon, then you can do the same thing. It does meet both color requirements. You are actually able to activate Megadeth successfully. And then again, bringing back up Ken and Davis, it is a dual-colored Tamer that has both blue and green in it. So at the same time, just as with the Paildramon, it does meet the color requirements for Megadeth. You are actually able to play it. Even though you only have one card with both colors, it does have both colors in it. You're able to play your options that are dual-colored. Alright everyone, and that will be all that I have for you today. I know most of these were very basic, but like I said at the beginning, and like the title says, these are just basic BT8 rulings. Not anything too complex. I wanted to wait until I got those into when we got the personal cards, like physical cards that I could deal with, instead of just having to do everything on TTS. I personally, again, not the biggest fan of TTS because I like to play with physical cards, but I digress on that. If you are a newer player, I feel like some of these would be good. If you're a more experienced player, you've kept up with the Japanese format or something like that, you'll know a lot of these rulings, a lot of this new mechanics and how they work, but not all players will, not all look forward, and the newer players need to know some of these so they can kind of be prepared for when the new set comes out and not just have to learn everything all at once. Or when the set does come out, feel free to come back to this video, get a little refresher on a few of these if you don't feel like, reading through a whole bunch of text without seeing physical paper and how it works. But all that being said, if you guys still enjoyed the content, be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll have more of this going forward, and I'm still trying to get to that 1,000 subscribers. We hit the 500 as I mentioned at the start. Super excited about that. And if there's any other comments, maybe questions you had, maybe some small stuff that I missed that you kind of want to go over, that I'm hopefully will be able to answer for you for BT8. Again, I'm not going to try to do anything super complex for BT8 right now. I mentioned that several of times. So if it's just something real simple, maybe that you think I missed in this, just leave a comment down below. I'll try to answer that for you as well. But all that being said, again, thank you guys for watching till the end of the video. And until the next ruling video or gameplay video or something like that, I hope you guys have a great day. See you next time.